shining spotlight on the life of Jesus. So now some are taking a radical new look at the life of Muhammad. Patricia Kroner is a professor at Princeton. She is one of a number of historians whose research into the roots of Islam has sharply divided the world of early Islamic studies. You cannot reject the Muslim story, she wrote, but you cannot accept it either. The only solution is to step outside of the Islamic tradition and start again.
There is a curtain as regards Muhammad that you can't get behind.
What do we know about him and his life?
Well, we know that he existed. We know that he was active somewhere in Arabia. We know that he's associated with the book, the Quran. He was the one who uttered it. But it doesn't get us to what actually happened, which is what, of course, a historian would like to reconstruct. We have absence of evidence. We have the Quran, and you can't tell the story of the basis of the Quran. We have various early non-Muslim sources. They don't add up to a story. We have nothing. We have this one book out of a nothing. There's complete darkness.
But here, that's not the way they see things. The Bedouin think they know everything about Muhammad. His character, his wives, even his favourite food. This is a whole world founded on stories of Muhammad.
كان يعيش الرسول على الجمال، وكانت هي الوحيدة الذي يتنقل عليها البدو والأجمال والإسلام، وإحنا على هذه نعيش ونتحمل الصبر إن الصبر كويس، ونصبر على الماء على الظما والأكل والجوع، ولكن هذا يعاني فيها الرسول وكانت الجيش لأجل الإسلام، لنصبر هذا الصبر، لنقطع هذه الصحاري، لننشر كلمة الإسلام إن شاء الله.
But the problem is, how do we know this was what it was like? How can we separate what really happened from the hearsay and the myths?
Do we know, did the Prophet Muhammad come here, Huna?
Yes, يوان كان خرج من مكة إلى مناطق الشام وجاء على منطقة فجلس في شجرة في الصفاوي.
Was there a tree? Was Muhammad even a travelling merchant? The evidence is almost non-existent. The earliest biographies we have were written nearly 200 years after Muhammad's lifetime.
In most religions, the tradition was handed down through oral history for millennia. This is put aside. That was called positive history. The oral tradition is completely negated.
Well, oral tradition means that you remember what you want. Some of it must be history, and most of it is clearly not history. It's just that they have been reshaped, rethought. They have been taken out of their original context, serving new functions. They've been cleaned up by all kinds, or cleaned up or messed up, if you like, by all kinds of interests that people have in the memory.
If supposing there is no written text of the time of the Prophet mentioning his name, the same is true of Christ. The same is true of Moses. That doesn't mean anything because there's always the oral tradition.
Sometimes if you have other sources from other points of view, you can suddenly see what it is that's been changed, and then when you can see that, you can also see why it has changed. But because Islam arose in a relatively remote corner of the world, we don't have these checks. We don't yet have the key that can unlock the tradition.
I came here to get close to the tradition. And when you're here, you can feel its weight. It's in the air. It's palpable. It can't just be brushed aside. Millions upon millions of people believe it. This is their history. An entire moral universe has been built around the stories told of Muhammad.
هذا أيام الجاهلية قبل الإسلام. كان الواحد يوم تجيه بنت خوفا لا تعمل عيبة وكذا إلى آخره يذبحها لأنها عار، يجيب لها عار ويجيب لها منتقد بين البشر. فيجيب البنت ويدفنها ويحيى، بعد ما يدفنها ويحيى صح. عمر بن الخطاب له بنت وجابها وده يدفنها، حفر لها وده يدفنها، جاء الرمل على شاربة من هون، جابت بيدها قامت تقول بالرمل كي مش يعني مش، حفر لها ودملها. جاء سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم أوقف كل الأعمال هاي.
Listening to all these stories, part of me very moved. The other part of me was wondering, well, how do you know this? Where do these stories come from? Are they really true?
Gradually in the West, for the intellectual elite, the sense of the sacred was lost. A tribal person in Africa or in the Amazon has a natural sense of the sacred, whereas a graduate student at Oxford probably doesn't.
الله أكبر. سمع الله من حمده. ربنا لك الحمد. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان الله. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. يا رحمة الله. الله
In some places, you have to be careful where you tread. Muslims believe that from the very beginning, the great Arab conquests were all about Islam. But in the 7th century, you can barely find a new religion called Islam anywhere in the historical record. And that's why I've come here. This is Jerusalem. They've been building walls here for a long time. But they've never built a wall yet that could keep people safe forever. Historically, the capital city of God has always been one of the world's most conquerable places. Here, if anywhere, in the one-time world of the Roman Empire, the 6th and 7th centuries live on. The same intensities, the same anxieties. For thousands of years, Jerusalem had been shaped and mapped by the religions of its rulers. When the Jews ruled, they built a gigantic temple which dominated the city. Later, when the Roman Empire became Christian, Jerusalem was transformed into the world centre of Christian pilgrimage. Look at the street plan now, and you saw a map of a Christian world. The Jews were gone, airbrushed out of the picture. The Romans constructed a new Holy of Holies, the Holy Sepulchre, a vast cathedral raised over the traditionally accepted site of Jesus' crucifixion. That was how God and empire worked. The Roman Empire believed in God, and God believed in the Roman Empire. But then, in the year 636, God changed his mind. Arab marauders appear outside the walls. Sophronius, the city's bishop, writes that it is too dangerous to leave.
The Arabs were closing in, and there was nothing people of Christian Jerusalem could do about it except to stay where they were, look out from their walls, and await the arrival of the Arabs.
And out of the desert they came, and they had become irresistible. In 636, they beat a Roman army at Yarmouk. Soon after, they beat a Persian army at Qadisiyah. Both empires too weak after their own long wars to resist the Arabs. They marched into the richest provinces of the defeated empires. And less than 5 years after the death of Muhammad, they set their eyes upon the promised land. The land flowing with milk and honey, the land that God had promised to the Jews. Now, the Arabs had come to claim that birthright for themselves. The children of Israel had made it a Jewish land. The Romans had made it a Christian, holy land. If the Arabs did arrive with a new religion, then we should be able to find its imprint here. Contemporary Christian sources confirm that late in the 630s, the Arabs took over Jerusalem by peaceful negotiation. But what they don't say is what the conqueror's religion was.